UC Davis Strawberry Cultivar Improvement Program began in 1925 when, and some of you know the story way better than I do, so if you want to butt in and correct me, please do. When Professors Howe and Placidus made initial crosses and some selections. And very soon after that, though, Goldsmith and Thomas took over the program, and it was headquartered at UC Berkeley. UC Davis at that time was a farm school for Berkeley, and it was about 60 miles away. So I don't know how you make that ride on horses, but I think that's what they used to do. Goldsmith and Thomas developed 5 strawberry cultivars: Larson, Shasta, Sierra, Tahoe, and Donner, of which only Shasta and Larson became commercial cultivars in the United States. Donner actually was of interest to the Japanese industry later on. In 1944, Strawberry Institute was organized by a gentleman named E.F. Driscoll's, and that was in Santa Clara County, where San Jose is, at the bottom of the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. They were frustrated during the war because the university wouldn't let them breed strawberries. We needed the war effort to produce iron and rubber and things. And so they left the university and went to the Strawberry Institute that Mr. Driscoll's had founded. When they left, the story that I understand is that the germplasm was split equally. What was taken was also left at the university. Eventually, the Strawberry Institute developed into the Driscoll's company that you know today. After the war, Dr. Baker, in my former department of pomology, he assumed leadership of the UC program and retired soon after, at which time Royce Bringhurst came on board. Royce was working as an avocado breeder at UCLA, but he switched over very quickly. And very quickly, he developed a relationship with Victor Voth, and that's where the dynamic duo came into being. They produced probably 40 or 50 cultivars in their lifetime. Douglas Shaw was, they also did some very important work in production physiology, such as the use of cold stored plants for summer planting, the high elevation nurseries that allow fresh stuff plants. It's kind of a standard system now, but that was very novel back when these guys were working. Doug Shaw was hired in mid-1980s. He worked, he overlapped with Royce Bringhurst for a few years, and as Royce retired, Doug took hold of the reins of the breeding program, and as Victor Voth retired, I was hired to replace Victor. So, since 1991, I've had a distinct privilege to work with Doug Shaw. He's a great guy. He's a genius. He's one of the few people that has a real grasp on population genetics, quantitative genetics. He's really a dynamic person. It's been a pleasure working with him. I've learned a little bit about breeding on the way. Maybe I've helped him learn a little bit about plant physiology. And our collaborative work has resulted in a few cultivars, 13 to be exact, 2 that were just released last year. Albion, which I think you know very well, it's kind of a standard for fruit quality around the world. San Andres, a day-neutral variety that we're using very successfully in Southern California. It's, I think, the #1 cultivar down there right now.
Sweet Charlie was sort of the first variety that could really differentiate the Florida season from Southern California. Of course, the market window was not as tight then as it is now, but that was a very, very significant development. And of course, Camarosa at that time sort of did for Southern California what Sweet Charlie was doing for Florida, and that it was differentiating market windows even within California. And I suppose you could look at the Ventana as a more recent, very early yielding variety that has done that. So the point is differentiating the market windows. That's a trend that we're continually dealing with. Our growers are planting earlier and earlier, and our production window late in the season has actually continued to shorten. So varieties such as Winter Dawn and Florida Radiance have really tried to continue that trend. That's not something that we're leaving behind. Earliness is continuing to be very, very important for us. Also looking back, shelf life, looking at the amazing gains in shelf life, changed the industry to the extent that California is able to ship all over North America, and Florida now ships regularly well into eastern Canada. And obviously, shelf life is still and remains a very, very important component of the program. For Florida varieties, anthracnose resistance is very, very important in the past 20 years. Yes, fungicides are better. Spray equipment is much better than it used to be. Yet, the varieties are a very, very important part of that and really greatly help our growers to have good anthracnose resistance. Also, one of the real focuses of Craig's program has been harvesting efficiency, longer pedicels, more open canopies that allow better spray penetration and allow pickers to see the fruit better, larger fruit size, and of course in Florida, which is particularly important especially when you see the rainy weather that we have outside today, fewer cull fruit, whether that be from misshapenness, water damage, and so forth. One of the things that impressed me upon coming into the program and looking at the industry value over the years is that where you really see the big jump in industry value is right after the year 2000. And I don't think that's a coincidence. That's when the Variety Strawberry Festival really hit the industry, and it's still at least 50% of the acreage here in Florida. It represents all of the previous traits I mentioned about earliness, particularly shelf life, low cull percentage. It's also extremely resistant to rain damage, which is very, very important for us here. It also has a very consistent fruit shape in this environment. And one of the things that I discovered to be extremely important is a very steady production curve. And you saw Kirk mention that with San Andreas and Albion, but that's sort of what Festival has done for the growers here, is allowed them to be very predictable week to week, not a lot of peaks and valleys in production. And so it's sort of a workhorse that they can really count on to give them steady yields throughout the season. And so that's something that we continue to want to pay very good attention to in the breeding program. And then, of course, newer emphases is that we still need to work on getting greater early yields. Even in Festival, as I mentioned, Florida Radiance, which is known as Fortuna outside of the United States, was an attempt to do that. And Festival tends to size down late in the season here, whereas some of the newer varieties, Radiance and others that are following it, are doing a better job at maintaining fruit size later in the season.